All right, it is our second episode of the podcast.
Yay!
So I know.
Go us.
Go us. We had so much great feedback for the first episode. I'm sure you ladies saw lots of it. And now we're going to dive into episode number 2. We have lots of different topics to discuss. But Erica, we're going to start with a conversation that you were proposing about really just aging and how much time it takes, as a woman to even come and do a podcast like this.
Yeah. And you know what? It's not even about aging, to be honest. I was thinking the other day as I was preparing for a meeting that I had, I'd take a shower to blow dry my hair. Then I had to put on my makeup, pick what clothes I was going to wear, and go do my Zoom. Okay? That's all for Zoom. It took at least 45 minutes, and I don't give a shit about the way I look. So imagine that's me just doing the basics, if you will. Then I started to do the math. If you spend about 45 minutes a day doing this sort of pre-prep for your public life, you're looking at almost 5 hours a week. 5 hours that men can apply to getting ahead at work, in their career. It's 5 hours less that we have using our brain because we're focused on the inanity of the way we look. So as I was preparing for this, I thought, I want to talk about that. Since when has it's, I know about that like pink tax, which is about, sanitary products for women. But I feel like there's a pink tax on our time that limits us from our success to some degree because someone said that we need to look good in order to run a business or to be a marketing manager or to run a cash register. Like, what's going on with that? And I do want to talk about, this pressure that women have to look good, even though it is absolutely unimportant to the jobs that we do in life. Please discuss. Vivian, what do you think?
What do I think? I'm very much of the you're going to get what I got camp. So depending on my mood, like sometimes I show up au naturel and I can give 2 kicks. But then there's times where I show up like this. And, they do say, when you look good, you feel good. And honestly, I was in the worst of moods before I got here, but I put on this stuff and then I felt better. I put on a bright color and I felt better. Mm-hmm. So I think there is some psychology to it. And I think there's just a pink tax that we just carry around, period. Period.
Literally.
Literally. It doesn't bother me because I'm not going to lie. I use it to my advantage, right? My cleavage has gotten me, a lot. And it's gotten me really far ahead in life.
Fair. Absolutely fair. I think it's important to talk about it, but I really value what you're saying because there is another way of looking at it. Yeah. So Lisa, what does this relate to you or does it resonate with you?
It does. I've always been one of those women who, despite the fact that I do spend time doing my hair and my makeup, most days. I will admit during the pandemic I'd go a few days without showering because when you're in lockdown, you're not seeing anyone anyways. But as a woman in business, especially a woman who's aging in business, I find, aside from the fact that, as you get older, there's this increasing invisibility of women over 50, which has its advantages and its disadvantages. But I find that there is still a lot of pressure that when I, being the public face of my firm, that I am done. My hair color is done, my makeup is done, my clothes are on point, my shoes have been maintained, all of the rest of it. And I found during the pandemic, I actually got a really nice break from that because you're all on Zoom and everyone, after a few months, everyone just kind of accepted that this was our new normal. Right. And I remember having a Zoom meeting with a chief of staff on the Parliament Hill, and he was literally sitting in sweats on his bed. And it was like, you know what? I don't care then either. And then you start having Zoom meetings where everyone's in hoodies and sweatpants and minimal makeup and no one cares. And I usually didn't even blow dry my hair. I would just make sure it looked good in that little square box, right? So now that we're back more into the real world, I'm kind of, it's like this double-edged sword. I really enjoyed not caring as much during that period. But now that we're all back out in the open and we're all 3 years older, that there is now more, I feel, whether I put it on myself or it's something that I've absorbed through society, that I am very conscious of my appearance when I'm being put forward in terms of business or if I'm going to meet friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for all of us, I think it's a situation, at least for me personally, I can only talk about my own experience with beauty, which no one's ever asked me, by the way. So I kind of like this conversation, Erica. I will say what I've learned is that it's expected of us as women. And I have learned how to take shortcuts. And that has worked well for me because, again, I don't want to spend 5 hours a week. I certainly don't. I've learned how to put lashes on in less than a minute, do my face in maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I barely wash my hair and I can get out of the house pretty quickly. So that's sort of my beauty routine and that works for me. So I know there is pressure to perhaps do more than that, but I always feel like I'm kind of doing the bare minimum just to be accepted in this world of beauty. And, I'm okay with that. To Vivian's point, I feel better when I have some of these things done. I think where there is friction is when women feel bound to do that and it makes them miserable.
Yes.
You know what we haven't talked about, though, which I'm sort of surprised no one brought it up, is the sheer cost of this.
Oh, God.
When you buy concealer, it's like $37 for
Where do
concealer.
you buy $37 concealer?
Tarte, baby, Tarte.
Oh, wow.
It's really good.
Elf. Elf.
That Elf is good too. But when you start adding up the cost of cosmetics, the cost of coloring your hair, the cost of Botox. Let's talk about those kinds of things. There was a recent study that showed that, I think it was in the Toronto Star, that said that Gen Zs are now skyrocketing in terms of the amount of Botox and the plastic surgery that they're
Botox.
taking in. And these are women in their 20s who are getting filler and Botox.
But what they don't understand is that they look 40 already.
Well, the thing is, I am not judging them.
Right.
I don't think that it's wrong. My question is, why do they think they need to?
Social media.
What is this? Yes. What is
Filters.
this world that we have created? And we're part of it that tells women that they need to look unnaturally, is it beautiful or unnaturally put together, and that they are not allowed to age. What is going on? What is the message that these women are receiving?
I want to answer this, but I want to go back to the cost of beauty because I can't help sometimes think that sometimes as women, we do this to ourselves. And what I mean by that is if you went into my little makeup room here in the studio right now, you would see that my eyeshadow palette has Winnie the Pooh on it because I stole it from my son and it was $9.99 at Hot Topic. And I only mention that because I think there's pressure to have all these products, but I think it's okay for women to have permission to say, I'm not going to go and buy into that. I'm going to go like I do to Pacific Mall and I buy fake eyelashes. I get like 100 for $20, right? And I'm going to break away from what is expected of me. So the cost thing to me feels like there's pressure to buy more expensive products and do more expensive things, but we don't have to, right?
Well, really what it is that we are slave to capitalism and
Instagram
and the patriarchy.
Yes.
Because they are doing a great job of making sure that women keep their eyes off the ball. The busier they are buying products, spending their money on that, the less time they're spending on climbing the ladder while these men are laser focused on doing their jobs. That's what I think about as I put on my makeup.
Exactly.
Right?
But we're free to break away from that. Right? Like the only reason I mention that is that I feel sometimes that I agree with you, Erica, like we're caught up in a lot of this and there is pressure. You know, I have friends who are posting, you know, beauty products that are super expensive. Like, I'm not buying that crap.
Right.
I'm just not. I can afford it. I can buy whatever I want. I've got lots of, you know, income to do that, but I'm not going to buy into that. So the thing is that if it makes us miserable and if it's taking time and if it's costing a lot of money, don't we as women have to sort of say to each other, like, don't do that if these are the ways that you feel?
But what about these young women who are spending, I don't know, I actually looked up how much does Botox cost yesterday, and I know that I'm going to be peppered with all kinds of ads on social media in the next week or so. But it looks like it's between $500 and $1,000 to get your shot of or shots of Botox that will last you, 3 months?
Yes.
That is a lot of money.
Yes.
That is, talk about a pink tax, if you will. That makes me very upset that women are basically taking that money and pouring it down the drain.
But are they, if it makes them feel good, and shouldn't they
Agreed.
have the right to go and do that?
They do have the right. 100%. I'm not judging them. I'm asking the question, why do they feel the need to do it? And it's actually a genuine question because I don't feel it. So that's why we're here to discuss.
Honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, Instagram and how you see beauty influencers and the filters. I follow this woman called The Real Slim Sherry, who just turned 50. And so she's this Gen X woman who's very funny. And she talks about all of these things. And she put a filter, like there's this new filter, this beauty filter on Instagram. I don't do videos on Instagram, so I haven't tried it. So she showed what she looked like with this filter, and you know, her 50-year-old face looked like it was 25, and then she removed the filter and you're like, oh. And so if young women, if that's what they're consuming, whether it's the Kardashians or whomever, who are on social media using these filters, photoshopping all their images, you know, young women then are thinking that that's what they're supposed to look like, that's the beauty standard. And I think part of the issue is the beauty industry is constantly moving the goalposts.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
It used to be the ads in the 50s where you need to look good for when your husband comes home, otherwise he won't see you. Yeah. And now we're at this point where you need to always look 25. And I was reading also a study the other day where it says, you know, women hit their peak attractiveness at the age of 18. 18 years
You're
old.
not even done growing.
Barely a legal adult.
You're still a child.
Whereas for men, their peak sexiness or handsomeness is between 46 and 50.
Who is saying that women are at their peak attraction? Is it men?
Probably.
Because are we living for men?
Yes.
This is the question.
That's the patriarchy.
Yeah, once again, is that I at least I in this room, and I know that Amber, you, when we talked last time, you really had a huge impact on me on using my voice, reminding me. And I feel like women need role models who are older to show them that it's okay to age and that we are beautiful without succumbing to this bullshit pressure that the industry is forcing on us. So if you look at my face, this is a face without Botox. I use makeup when I have to go on camera and present, but I take care of myself. I eat well. I'm happy. I'm happy on the inside, and it shows on my face. And I just want to give women the option to consider a different way of staying young, which is having a rich life and not spending money on products.
I feel like there's a bit of a backlash in a good way on this topic. I was listening to a song recently that was created by a woman named Jax on TikTok. You guys probably know her. She wrote the song about Victoria's Secret, how brand was created by a man in Ohio. And it reminds,
was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and that's what
And
that's
that's
Victoria's Secret.
And that's what everyone's been keeping up with. Some
And it's a fantastic
Rat-faced
song
man
where
in
she,
Ohio.
breaks down sort of like, opens the curtain on the realities of who is behind Victoria's Secret. It's not women putting pressure on other women. It was a man who's made a lot of money off this ideal beauty type. And we can say the same about beauty filters, because if you actually look into the beauty filter that is trending right now on social media, which is actually from TikTok or its
Oh, the
parent
bold
company,
glamour.
in
Yeah.
China, remember, again, this has been created by a bunch of developers, likely men, who have said that people will love this beauty filter. So I guess my point is this all comes back to a systemic issue that exists
Yes.
right now, where we don't have women in positions of decision making.
Yes.
Because if I were on a tech team who said we're going to put this filter out there, I would say, no, you are not, because that's a terrible thing to teach the next generation of women.
Well, it also teaches them, and you're going back to Victoria's Secret too. What Victoria's Secret also did was not only tell one or two generations of women that this is what you need to wear on your body to please men.
Oh, and what your body is supposed to look like,
Exactly.
which is absolutely
trust
impossible.
me, that stuff is not comfortable, right? Like, give me my cotton panties. Like, that's what makes me happy.
Granny panties.
That tide has turned because of companies like NYX,
Yeah.
who are saying, actually, that is not acceptable. And your body is your beautiful body. And like the four of us in this room who all have different bodies, and we are all stunning. We're gorgeous. We glow because we are comfortable in our bodies.
Do you think it's our age though?
Potentially.
Yeah.
It's
It
also
has
the
a
way that
lot
I
to
was
do.
raised.
Right.
I
I also think same thing. So I know, especially being a Black woman, we were always outside of that beauty standard. So we have like this additional layer of, you know what, just you waking up is just not beautiful enough. So I think from an early age as a Black woman, and as you know, like it's always like, hey, you go girl, because all these positive things about beauty and about being yourself and being confident, a lot of it comes from Black women because we didn't have a choice. So we were going to love the bodies that we have, the skin that we have, the hair that we have, no matter what. So for me, I never felt that pressure to be skinny or to be blonde or to be any of those other things, because it's like, this is the body God gave me and I'm just going to live in it and I'm going to do the best that I can with it. And so, the conversation, the old and it doesn't really exist in our community because it's like, we have the saying, Black don't crack, because we can be in our 60s and look like we're in our 40s and in our 40s and looking like we're in our 20s. And so it's never been, it doesn't really resonate with me because it's like, if you don't like what I got, then I don't care. You can go kick rocks.
love it.
Yeah.
It's so healthy. It's so
Yeah.
healthy and it's fierce. And it comes from an inside, it comes from a philosophy.
And
that
you know
I'm
what? It's
good
in
enough.
our DNA because,
Yes.
we've been outsiders from the beginning of time, right? We've been battered. Like there's a reason why there's that strong Black women trope, is because we've had to be strong.
But you know what's so interesting is that my daughter, who is 19, when she was just slightly younger, it was drilled into her head that she had to look like everybody else, which is still, those filters, it takes away your personality,
Yep.
any defining features, and makes you look bland.
Yep.
Why would you want to look the same as everybody? When I was on Much Music, I had so many letters. There was no email. So many letters.
Imagine, yeah.
People telling me how ugly I was because my nose was too big. And I was pummeled with this kind of information. And I would see myself on TV every day. And so I remember saying to my mom, Mom, should I get a nose job? And she said, yeah, you actually could. And just consider you will no longer look like yourself. You were hired because you look a certain way.
Yep.
But if you feel more comfortable looking like everybody else,
Yep.
I thought about it. I looked at the other women on TV and I went, actually, I like being me.
Honestly,
I stand out.
I can't name another MTV or Much Music VJ. I can't, because you stood out to me.
I had the best nose. I was memorable. I was memorable because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
because I looked
Yeah.
different. And I think that there are some people who they're cluing in. Oh, like Vivian, I know you do. I'm different and I'm proud of it. I stand out.
Yeah.
Right? And I wish more people, men too, I wish that more people understood the value of being different.
Like, why
what's-
blend in when you could stand out? Like, I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
never understand that.
Well, I find it interesting, that you would get this kind of hate mail for your appearance. And I used to do a lot of television political commentary. And this one day I was doing a hit right after lunch. And usually you have something in front of you, right? So you don't have to really worry about anything. I was in a pencil skirt and a fitted shirt. There was nothing in front of me. I was sitting on a stool. Within about an hour of the hit airing, people on Twitter started having a discussion about whether or not I was pregnant.
Oh, my
Right?
goodness.
Because I was sitting,
Right.
I have a pencil skirt, fitted shirt, on a chair. And it's like, listen, you losers, that's a food baby.
That's just a belly.
I ate lunch. I ate lunch. And you guys are like talking about whether or not I'm pregnant because I have a little bit of a pooch. Like, I'm 6 feet tall and I'm fairly slender. And if I had a good lunch, well, go to hell,
Yeah.
right? Like, so, and I was a model in LA in the late 80s.
Whoa.
I
Tell
know.
us more.
Oh, I have stories.
I'm
I
sure
was-
you
I
see
was-
it's fascinating because this is exactly what we're kind of talking about,
Right.
which is the being appreciated only for the way you look.
Yeah. So I was 19. I'm 6 feet tall. I was a little bit heavier than I am now. And they wanted me to lie about my age so that I would be younger, right? Because 19 is
Old.
too old. And I had to lie about my height so I would be shorter. And I'll never forget, there was one day I was sitting in the agency and I was literally eating a sandwich. And my agent came by, took the sandwich out of my hand and said, "No, you don't get any more food today." And it shapes everything then that comes after. Because at that point, your only value is your appearance or how young you can seem. Like at 19, imagine that at 19, you're trying to look younger than your actual age. I didn't last long in the industry. Apparently also, my face isn't as symmetrical as it's supposed to be, right? Like, so you end up with all of those insecurities. And now at this point, in my life, I'm in my 50s. You talked about Botox earlier. I'm very lucky in the sense that I need to get migraine Botox. So every 3 months, I get 31 needles into my head and shoulders. But my
What is lucky about that? That sounds very painful.
It is, but it takes care of my migraines. But I get 2 little injections right in between my eyebrows, and it was like immediate, the change in my face. And I'm very open about the fact that I'm a chronic migraine sufferer. I've been suffering for 40 years. It's terrible, and no one should have to live through that. But it is expensive. It is not covered. But there's this piece where you're like, yeah, I like not having that furrow in between my eyes.
And I just want to reiterate for the millionth time,
Yeah.
all the power to you. You're doing it for medical reasons, sort of.
Oh, I did it for beauty reasons.
Yeah, and
a
like,
couple of
and I'm
months ago.
I'm totally
I have no
not judging
shame.
you. I am
Yeah.
not judging you.
No,
It's totally
totally.
fine if you want to do it. And maybe one day I will do it when I feel like my face is drooping or whatever, or my furrow, whatever is too furrowed. But the question is always just ask ourselves why, to what end,
Yeah.
and who are we serving by doing that? That's all.
The patriarchy.
Well,
The
and
patriarchy.
I think too, if we just if we switch focus a little bit to talking about sort of the best decade, because I think everybody has brought this up in one way or another. I started this conversation talking about the pressures of beauty and also aging, but I know, Lisa, you've said this time and time again, and I love to hear women say this, that so far in your early 50s, that this is your best decade. Women, I think, do get just so confident as we age. It takes a long time to get to this point, though.
Oh, it absolutely takes a long time. I wish I had the level of confidence that I have now back in my 20s and 30s and 40s. I could only imagine how that could have changed me. But it's not even just confidence. It's just I don't care what people think anymore.
Yeah.
Right? You get to the point where and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. who are we doing this for? Are we doing this for ourselves? Or are we doing this for everyone else? And then you start talking, though, about, being in your 50s. I'm a single woman in my 50s, and I don't have to worry about getting pregnant. I don't have to wipe little kids' bums anymore. There's
Yes, you do. Your grandchildren, you do.
That's true. That's true. I do have to wipe their bums, and I'm basically, I clean
But
after.
you're grandma, not grandma.
Yes,
yeah.
or I'm big mama, according to my older grandson. But so it's been really freeing in that sense to be able to pursue my business, almost like, I guess, how a man would grow a business, right? Where they don't have children at home to worry about because they know that their wife or somebody else is looking after them. Where you don't have those external responsibilities. I mean, I got a couple of dogs, but I have a woman that comes and helps me take care of the dogs when I'm away. So it's been really freeing for me to get older. And I kind of dig it. I like where I am. I like who I am. And I like that ability that I can just be who I am. And if you don't like it, I don't need you in my life.
But why does it take so long for women to get to that point? That's the thing that I struggle with in terms of the conversations we've been having about younger women. I mean, it really does take us decades potentially to get to the point where we are comfortable in our own skin. Even just all of us sitting here, we span a few different decades. And I think, for most of us, there was probably a point in our 20s where we didn't feel as confident as we do now. What is the delay and what is the trigger there that, that kind of the switch that happens?
I think maybe it could be, in a sense, biological. We are looking for a mate in order to procreate, to keep our race alive, to have children. And so we need the male gaze. We need men to pick us. So we need to, and so therefore our success is only when we're chosen by a man in order to have children.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit, but you're probably right.
You're absolutely
so,
right.
and then once now we're all done with that business. We're like, fuck you.
This is what we worked up to? This is what we waited for? This is some bullshit.
Yeah.
But it is true that I think that it does take a long time. Like if you could instill the confidence of a 40, 50, 60-year-old woman, 70, 80-year-old woman in a 25-year-old, I mean, the world would change quickly.
But it is different. So in my firm, I hire a lot of young people, partly because they haven't formed bad habits working at other agencies that I have to break them of. And I really appreciate, so I have Gen Z in my firm, I have millennials in my firm, I have Gen X in my firm, and I really appreciate the different perspectives they give me. And I think Gen Z gets a lot of bad raps. They were the participation trophy generation, right? But the ones that are working for me, they have very clear goals of what they want and how they want to get there. And I literally rely on 24, 25, 26-year-olds to make sure that they're keeping our clients happy, that they're doing the work that's required. And there's this dichotomy between which they're spoken about in the media, that they're just a bunch of babies and, they just need to be coddled. And what I'm seeing in front of me is so different. And especially with the women, I am seeing more confidence with younger women now than I saw when I was a young woman myself. So it's just, there's this weird dichotomy happening where there's this continued emphasis on our appearance, but at the same time, women are getting more comfortable and to be able to express their views in a room full of men. Because that took me a long time.
Hopefully it's because there are women like us, and I'm sure many of the people who are listening to this conversation right now or watching this conversation who understand that it is a responsibility to model the behavior you hope the younger people will start to practice, and to mentor people to, when a woman asks you a question, give her your full attention and give her an answer that will help her understand why it's okay to be a certain way or why it's not okay to put up with certain behavior. We are like, I guess, in the world of myth or whatever, we're the crones. We're the older women. And that doesn't reflect the way we look, by the way, but we are the ones who are the wise women. And we have and are continuing to blaze trails with what women or what femaleness looks like and how it behaves. And what a great opportunity to pass that on to young women. I know that is like my favorite thing is talking to my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter, and looking her in her eye and watching this information go into her. And it's swirling around in there as she's at university and as she makes her choices. And it's really fun to see these little comments that she'll make. She's like seriously feminist and loves guys. What a perfect mix. So it's not about disliking men. It's about understanding your role in relation to men, in partnership with men.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you say that. So I was a single mom raising my 2 kids. So my kids, I have a daughter who's about to be 31 next month, and my son just turned 27. And so they were raised in a very feminist household. At dinner, you could talk about whatever you wanted. We were talking about consent before it was named consent. And my son recently told me, he's at U of T, and he had said to me, he said, when I left home and went out into the real world, he said, I thought that the world operated like how we operated in the house, where, you be respectful of women. And like my son wouldn't even put up posters of girls in bikinis because he recognized that this was not, something that his mother found, acceptable. But he said to me, but you didn't tell me that wasn't how the world worked. He said, so that was the one thing that was missing from a feminist upbringing, was that I was going out into a world that was not where we were in our home.
I think it's also sort of redefining roles. And just as you guys were all speaking, I was thinking back to when I first met Erica, and Erica and I started chatting, became friends quickly. And then Erica and I were talking about Yummy Mommy Club, which Erica ran. And I remember telling Erica, like, I could never see myself writing for you, even though I was a new mom, because I didn't really identify as a mom. I mean, I know that's a weird thing to say, but I identified as a businesswoman, and I didn't really know, how to be a mom. I mean, I am a great mom, but I didn't identify as that traditional mom.
Yeah.
And I say that, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I wasn't interested in mom topics. Like, I didn't need to know about, what to feed my kid or how to nurse. I was just like, too busy with work to really focus on that.
But I'm going to interrupt you right there because YMC was actually focused on exactly that, which is much of the conversation was like, how do you fix your car? We had a woman named Emily Chung, who is a mechanic. She runs her own mechanic shop. And so she would sort of translate for us, for women who are independent. Yeah. This is how you fix your car. When your windshield wipers don't work, this is what you do. So it was really life seen through the perspective of a woman with children.
Yeah. And I just couldn't I think you're exactly right. I mean, sure, there's lots of content there for me, but I couldn't identify and relate to the mom crowd. I'm not saying this in a negative way.
And I didn't either.
No, I know.
That was why we related. And that's why I started YMC, because I was looking for women who were like me. It was like, there's more to life than just being a mom, right?
Yes. So it's, and I guess, and yet at the same time, I mean, just to pick up on something Vivian had emailed us in terms of having conversations about aging, I'm just trying to kind of tie this all together, because when you're in your 20s, I think you do have a certain type of confidence. But for many of us, then all of a sudden you start to have kids. And then when you should be kind of in your prime and running your business and doing your thing, you're kind of exhausted. And so what does that do to women, that sort of stage of life where you have, your son's still pretty young?
Yeah, he's 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what's going on in your life?
My life?
Yeah.
Oh, girl.
Because you told us that you were exhausted and that you would tell us you were going to save it for the show. So what's going on?
I'm at a really funny point in my life where, first my business got acquired.
That's
congratulations.
Thank you. And so I'm just at a really funny stage because for the last, basically my son's life. So for the last 10 years, I've been running this business, and it's made me into, or helped to make me into the person that I am today. And now I'm sort of like at this crossroads of, okay, so what do I do
What's
next?
my purpose?
I already know what my purpose is, but how do I make money with it? Right?
Yeah. How do I monetize
how
my
do I
purpose?
monetize it? And so, but one of the things I've also realized is part of the reason why I sold my business was because I was tired. And I don't mean tired in the sense of exhausted because I didn't sleep. No, I meant like I'm weary. Like I am just so broken down, like and this is because of a number of things, right? So not only was I an entrepreneur, but I was also a single mother. So I grew this business and I raised a baby at the same time by myself. And even though they say it takes a village to raise a kid, I had a village, but it still largely fell on me.
Yeah, of course.
And with that made my social life suffer because I was so busy minding my business and my baby. And it actually all came to a head really when last year I had a total hysterectomy. And I was, one of the things I was really sad about was that I didn't get the chance to have another child with someone that actually wanted to be with me. And I didn't get that fairy tale ending. And here I am, this strong, independent woman, but I'm still by myself. And so I'm struggling with this. Yes, I'm glad I'm a strong, independent woman, but I'm tired.
I appreciate your vulnerability. I really appreciate that you said that. That really got me in the heart. It really did.
And so now I honestly, it's like when we're talking about the makeup and the this, and it's like, you know what? If I have to, and this is going to sound very anti-feminist, but I'm almost like, what? I did all that for what? Like all this independent woman, strong, but I'm still by myself and I'm tired and there's no one to support me when I want to rest. And so it's like, well, maybe I need to put on the lipstick and show the cleavage and find a man to just take care of me so that I can just sit down and be pretty because I'm literally at that point in my life.
Maybe you'll find a man who will love you because you're amazing, and the lipstick will come on when you feel like it, because that lipstick, that only lasts, it wears off.
Yeah.
And not if you buy the expensive kind. I'm just kidding. My lipstick's cheap too.
But you know what I'm saying. And by the way, getting dressed up and putting on lipstick and all that is fun.
Yes.
It's fun.
Absolutely.
It just shouldn't disadvantage us in our careers is all I'm saying.
No, you're absolutely right.
And it's fun being a woman.
Yes.
And that's all about our choice.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, I think, in most of our conversations is the idea of no judgment, and women should have the choice.
Yes.
And society shouldn't you shouldn't be penalized because you don't play certain games.
Right.
And I think, just as Vivian is talking, I think also respecting where other women are at in their lives and the support systems they have around them and being aware of that. And what I mean by that is because I'm having a total hysterectomy on Monday, I think about this oftentimes because people will say to me, I've been dealing with health issues for the past couple of years. And I kind of, I plow through it because I have a good support system. So when I go in for that total hysterectomy, my partner, Chris, will be in the waiting room for me. When I come out of the waiting room, my parents will be here. They're traveling to Toronto, who will be there for me. But as this happens to me, I am fully aware that not everybody has that type of support. And what I've realized, the most in terms of going through this health situation the past couple of years is the access that I have to healthcare and services that many women don't. So, I've been on iron infusions to fight anemia. Well, guess what? They're $500 a month because I get this premium iron that
Better than Botox.
Yes, it's sort of life-saving for me, 100%. But
Botox or iron?
I know, exactly. That's kind of where I'm at. But I mention this just because it's sometimes when we're out in the social space and we see women who are maybe struggling, or we see women who are thriving, we all have to understand the context of where those women are at.
Yeah.
And what I find a lot with all of us as women is I think we can do a better job sort of having more compassion for each other and the situation that we are in.
Yes, so much so. You know, I was talking to a girlfriend not long ago, and she was telling me that her husband beat her up many years ago, and she never told anybody. You know, and so you never know when someone is sitting in front of you what they are going through, what they have gone through. And, you know, that's why the judgment thing, I really hope I don't sound judgy in this conversation.
No,
Not at
not at
I have
all.
a strong point of view, and it's how I live, but I certainly respect everybody's decision and look forward to a conversation to ask people, like, explain to me why it's important to you, or explain to me how that fits into your life. No one makes a wrong decision for their life.
I've made a couple.
But that's you deciding. That's not me deciding that you've made a bad choice.
Yeah.
That's for you.
Yeah, no, there's a few. You know,
The way you said "few."
What's his name?
yeah, there was a couple of marriages there, boy. But you know, listening to Vivian talking about, you know, being single and having raised her son alone, you know, I've been there, and it's the hardest thing in the world. You know, a woman being on her own, trying to raise children, have a career, that balancing of, can I have it all? And, you know, when we start talking about that older woman confidence, you know, for me, I recognize that I am going to retire alone, that the burden of making sure that I have the savings to do that is entirely on me. And I'm cool with that. Like, okay, I have a special friend, but I am never again going to get
benefits.
Yes, I'm never again going to get into a traditional relationship. I have figured out at my age now that they don't benefit me because
Oh no, marriages benefit men.
Exactly. So for me now, being a woman who runs her own business, who has a decent income, who owns her own home, I'm now making my own decisions for me. And if a great guy comes along and all of a sudden I change my mind, well, great. But I still, like, I love being on my own. I love being the one to make my choices. But then there's trade-offs, right? I needed to take a vacation in January. I was burnt out, you know, to your point. I'd been working nonstop. I built my business through the pandemic. And my staff were at the point of basically demanding that I take time off because I hadn't for 3 years. Because for me, failure was not an option. And I went by myself to the Dominican. And it was like, I was like, I can do this. I'm a strong, independent woman. I can travel by myself. And I got to say, I was so bored.
Well, next time you call me, 'cause I would go to the Dominican.
There we go. Okay. See, I just need a vacation buddy now. But, you know, I do like being, you know, the master of my own destiny. I do like not having to run choices by someone. And maybe that's selfish. It could be, but I like it.
Well, you know, so and I've done all that. Like I've made all my own choices. I've been the master of my own domain, all that stuff. But I'm literally at a point where I'm tired. Like I need someone else to make some decisions for me. I feel like I've just been on the go for the past decade, and I can't stop. Like now that I can rest, it's like, but I can't. I can't rest because my kid needs to eat. I need to pay the mortgage. I need to do all that. And so, and it's actually interesting because when I went to Ghana back in July without my kid, so it was just me, and I've never felt so free and taken care of. And it was just an amazing 10 days. And I literally cried the day I was leaving because I knew I was coming back to, now I got to do it all. I got to be that single independent woman again. And it was then that I decided this single independent woman thing it sucks. And it's one thing when you're coming from, you come from a position where you were married and you had support and the guy was a jerk and but when you've never had anything like that, it's kind of hard for me to be like, okay, well, at least you can go to the grocery store by yourself.
So can I ask you a question? What could we do as friends? No, I'm saying that sincerely because it breaks my heart to hear this because again, I go back to the point of, knowing I have Chris, who is, for people who aren't aware, just a few feet away from me, who is always there for me to run and get stuff and to help. And I don't know what I would do without him, right? To drive our kid to school, to do all that stuff. And I feel an immense amount of privilege being in that position. And when I hear, friends, no matter who it is or what they're going through, like, it's not like we can instantly be a partner for you, but is there anything that women can do to step up to help? Like, hire our friends, make your work life easier.
Yeah. I guess honestly, it's just a matter for the person. Like, I know for me, what I've realized is because I've been a strong, independent woman, I'm always doing things for myself. I just appreciate when people just do things for me without me asking. And I know it sounds silly because it's like, oh, they can't read my mind to figure out what it is that I need to do. But if you're my friend and you're listening, you're probably hearing me talking about something, right? So I remember like my best friend, like I remember I needed to go somewhere and she was like, my husband can watch your son if you want. And I don't know why, but that really touched me because then it was like, because now one, he's now another father figure for my son. And two, he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to watch. I could get a babysitter, but just the fact that he's saying, Vivian, I know this is a thing that you want to do. And I know you don't want to, because then I got to find the money to pay a babysitter and just the whole thing. So why not just bring your son to my husband and my husband will watch your son. Like, to me, I don't know why, but it was so touching to me.
It's selfless and it's community.
Yeah. And it was the first time I had a friend actually do something like that. And I'm used to relying on my siblings and everything, but even then they've got, like, it's just different.
I'm going to tell you something that you are so not alone in how you're feeling because I think, I'm working with the Ontario Caregivers Organization.
Yes. Yeah.
And a caregiver is someone who cares for another person in their life. Mm-hmm. You care for your son.
Right.
You're a parent.
Right.
You're also a caregiver.
Right.
Often caregiving is associated with someone who is ill. But when you're on your own and responsible for the well-being of someone, you fall into that category. And there's research that shows that like 60%, 80% of caregivers, I can't remember the exact number, will never ask for help. And so the reason why that I'm part of their organization is to remind people that there are people around them in their lives who they don't really consider to be sort of caregivers, but to go and offer help in any way because you won't ask.
Right. No.
Caregivers don't ask because they're like, it's just my lot in life and I'm responsible and it's my responsibility in your case to take care of my son. But I am sure that there are many people in your life who go, oh my God, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think it requires people listening too,
yes,
right?
Of
And
course.
picking up on cues and being empathetic about individuals' situations.
But people don't want to insult you. That's part of what we heard is that people are afraid to ask caregivers, can I give help? Because they don't want to offend them. Like, you're not doing a good enough job. It looks like you're struggling.
There's
right?
both. Yeah.
I feel like people are also just a little bit selfish these days about their own lives, right? And to me, I think that comes into play sometimes is just this, not actually doing things and taking action and sort of building that community around you. Like, one of the things that I'm conscious of 24/7 is that I'm out on social media talking a good game, right? Am I actually reflecting that in my own life and being there for people and helping people and like actually doing things. And I think social media makes us feel sometimes like, oh, I'm doing lots of good stuff. Like I liked Vivian's post. That's enough. You know?
Yeah, no, you know what's so funny? I actually had a conversation with a friend the other day, and this was someone I considered close to me. And, you know, one of the things she was like, you know, you're always talking about Chad and, you know, doing Chad things, but I don't really see you doing Chad things.
What are Chad?
Right?
Sorry.
Oh, so Chad is the mediocre white guy doing the things he has no business doing because he has the audacity. And that's something that we women need to employ in our lives, like just have the audacity to do things. And so she's always like, oh, and I trademarked it. What would Chad do? Because that's what Chad would do. And so then she's like, I don't really, you know, you keep talking about these Chad things, but I don't really see you doing it. And, you know, and so what I said to her was, well, part of the reason why I don't really do Chad things is because in order to do those big things, I need someone to watch my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like logistics, right?
It's logistics. So yes, I can talk about these big Chad things, but because I know it can be done, and that's what I'm telling other people to do. But for myself, yeah, I need someone to watch my son in order to do it. So if you could help me do that, then I can go out and do big things, right? And that's part of the reason why Chad is a thing, is because he doesn't have to think of the children. Yeah. I do. Everything I do, I got like, okay, it's like if I'm here, I got to leave by 3, or even to get here, I had to be like, okay, can someone go and pick up my son from soccer camp? Because I know if I'm here till 1, that means I won't get home till 2:30. But if there's traffic, it's a whole thing. Like it's a pink tax.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And it's that mental load.
Yes.
It's that mental load that women have to carry that we don't ever really talk about. You know, even in my marriages, there's still a point at which there's things that only I was having to think about, right? In terms of scheduling things, planning things. And when my kids were little, you know, I was single, I was on my own with them, and I was trying to advance in my career. I worked on Parliament Hill, and there'd be times where last minute my boss would say to me, there's an event tonight I'd like you to attend. And my mind immediately freezes because I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do? I have to somehow figure out how to get out of here, go pick the kids up, take them home, get them some food, find someone to check in on them because they were old enough that I could leave them alone for a little while. But it's just this constant mental load. Mm-hmm. And even now, you know, as, you know, not having children I have to raise, I now try to limit the choices I have to make. Mm-hmm. Because I get overwhelmed with the amount of choices.
Decision overload,
right?
Decision fatigue.
And that's where we talked about this last time. This is why I often wear very similar clothes every day. Because I don't have to think about it. It's one less thing to think about. Yeah. Steve Jobs talked about that when he was alive. One less thing to think about so that you can focus on the big decisions. But when those kids were little and I was alone, like, I hear you, Vivian. It is brutal. And no one asked me if I needed help. And that, I think, was part of the hardest piece. Because we had no family here. We came from BC. And I was just constantly scrambling to find people who would help me.
But I also think there's, you know, I also think it's because I'm also the strong friend.
Yes, you are.
Right?
So people don't understand that you are kind of crumbling inside.
Because I'm sitting, I look great. I look, because that's just my nature.
And you are okay.
I'm not okay.
Okay.
I'm not okay.
Okay.
But I've also gotten to the point of, okay, well, we're not okay, but we still gotta do the things we need to do, because I can't afford to crumble.
Right.
I can't afford to fall apart. Because if I fall apart, no one's there to pick me up.
Well, you would probably be surprised that there would be people, but that's not where you want them. You don't want them after you've crumbled.
Right.
You want them now
to help you prevent from crumbling.
So yeah, we'll have to have a little off. We're gonna have a little debrief.
I'm moving in with Vivian.
Let's all move in with Vivian.
I don't know if I want to move to Hamilton though.
No, you don't want to move to Hamilton. Yeah. And that's another thing, right? It's a whole. And so then I'm at that crossroads in my life where it's like, it's just, I'm not young, you know, and it's not like, okay, I don't need to get married because I already have my own house. I have, like, you know, the original intention of getting married is to have kids and a house and support and build an empire. I've already done all that. So now it's like, okay, I need someone that wants a companion, but what am I doing? Like, how am I going to find this person? Well, I can't find this person because I can't find a babysitter. And it's just like, it just feels like a catch-22 that I just can't get out of.
In this day and age, there's a lot of people who are doing things like taking long walks during the day. Like, it's not
but I do that in
stuff.
Hamilton.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
And you also came in for the day. So there are
Right.
opportunities to do that kind of a stuff. But
Yeah.
I know it's a complicated.
Yeah, it's just, you know what? It's a complicated
it's
thing.
like a
and it's
puzzle that
just-
you have to solve.
But I'm tired of solving puzzles. I've been solving puzzles since
Yeah.
I was 17.
What you're saying too, like when you were talking about, you know, when we were kind of exchanging emails, and you were talking about how you just kind of want to drop out a bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not alone. There are a lot of women,
Yeah.
late 40s, early 50s, early 60s, who are dropping out of the workforce, who are dropping out of the pursuit of their careers, because number one, COVID took a huge toll,
Yep.
especially those who had young children still at
Yeah.
home, because that mental load,
Yep.
the parenting load,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
all of that, you know,
Yep.
honestly, had I tried to build a business and teach remote learning to small children, I would have lost my freaking mind.
I did.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I applaud the women who had to take their children through this process, because I don't think I could barely take care of myself during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
My dog was my companion. Yeah. So there are women now who are saying, you know what? I am
Enough is
burnt
enough.
out.
Yep.
I'm done. My tank is empty. I'm leaving. And then you move into this kind of gendered ageism, where women in their 50s and 60s aren't getting hired.
Yep.
They aren't getting raises. They're invisible to the team around them. And, you know, it's just like, there's so many hurdles we always seem to have to jump over. You know, just when we think it's like, oh, I got this down, I know how this works, and all of a sudden, new hurdle comes in.
Well, it's a very hard time now in the workforce with all the companies that are letting people go. It's a mess on every sphere. And I also don't understand why they wouldn't want to hire older women who don't have children at home, who are seasoned, who have learned to problem solve over the years. Like, to me, it seems not very sort of astute in terms of your decision-making process.
I think, though, to your point, Erica, I think, again, one of the issues probably is a lot of the people who are hiring are not women who would recognize what you just said. So I only bring this up because I think, you know, oftentimes we get in groups and we have discussions about, you know, what's happening and what could we do and why is this happening and how can this be real? But really, if you trace it back to leadership, whether it's in business or in politics, and you start to sort of connect the dots and see that, you know, it's mostly not women who are making decisions about our lives, and it trickles down to us.
Yes.
This is where we suffer the most. And this is, I think, unfortunate, because there is an opportunity for women to be in those positions, to be able to recognize that, hey, you know, that woman who's, you know, 55 or a single mom, she would be, you know, a great person in my business. And, you know, I could be flexible for her, instead of these guys who are like, I'm not going to allow remote work because I want everyone in the office. You've just just eliminated so many people from your potential workforce, including women who need sometimes to work remotely, because we have most of the caregiving responsibilities in the home, you know, whether we're single or not. I mean, this is just a reality.
And it's interesting too, because men our age haven't yet adjusted to this new reality. So because my business is growing, we're constantly in a hiring phase. And we recently interviewed this gentleman who was probably a few years older than me. And he spent the first 15 minutes of the interview mansplaining to me how to do my business.
That's a smart way to be interviewed by a boss who's going to potentially hire them.
Right? So I texted my CSO, who was on the call with me, and I said, make it stop, or I'm going to turn my camera off and go away. And he had that meeting wrapped up in about another 5 minutes. And it's like, you know what? He's interviewing for me, and I still can't seem to get away from a man telling me how to do my job, which, by the way, you're applying for a role because my business is successful. And, so we have those things still to have to deal with. But I think also when you have men our age who are in the positions of hiring, when they look at our CVs and see, we graduate, because you can't ask people's age anymore. So you can kind of figure out by the dates where they graduated university. And they just see old lady, right? They don't want to take the time to see what we have to offer. Everything that you had just said, Erica, that our kids are grown and gone, or they're old enough to take care of themselves. Plus we have the confidence, we have the maturity, we have the wisdom, and all those things that come with age. But yet, I don't see them.
And we wear fancy makeup.
Oh my gosh.
We can do the fancy makeup.
And I think also just have, I'm going to steal this word from Vivian again, but have the audacity to speak up for the people who can't speak up for themselves. And, I'm reminded, a number of times where I've been in meetings or at events or, in boardrooms, wherever it might be, and something will come up where I recognize that women aren't being considered in the decision-making process, or someone is being ignored or neglected or mistreated. I will be the first person to speak up in that meeting because I know that I can speak up and I don't have a lot to lose at this point. So I say that because I think we're going to have to do that more and more. Mm-hmm. And
I'm in. I will do it. I do it all the time.
We're going to do the hand thing. I know, that was good.
That's why we're in this room, is to have these conversations, to unpack where we are, and to really consider everybody's point of view and remind people who are listening that we are all powerful together and that it's okay to speak up and that we've got your back and that we're all feeling the same way. This is a real thing. It's a real challenge. We are in a potential time of great change. It's a good time for us to put our hands up and say, wait a second, consider this. You're experiencing so many problems in your business. Try looking at it this way. This may be more helpful for you. The world has changed. Leadership has to change.
100%.
100%.
I feel like this is a good place to probably wrap up our conversation because we have talked about so many things today, and it's been such a rich, deep episode. And I personally am so excited just to, again, have such a wonderful conversation with an amazing group of women. And I hope it inspires more women to kind of come together and be helpful, hire your friends, promote your friends,
check in on your friends.
Check in on your
Absolutely.
friends, speak on behalf
Look
of...
behind their big smiles.
Yes.
Listen,
Exactly.
I'm still laughing, so at least I have. When I stop laughing, then be concerned.
Oh, I don't want to see that. I don't want that to be episode 4 or 5. But I mean, thanks once again, ladies. This was awesome. So a great episod.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Here we go. Here we go.
Go team. Go team.
Come on.
Why do I feel like last time we got closer?